The U.S. military is seeking information about the mysterious illness known as Havana Syndrome that's left diplomats and spies with nausea, headaches, and vertigo. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin is urging people to report symptoms of what the military calls anomalous health incidents as soon as possible. Those are episodes of sometimes severe health problems with no known explanation. In a memo to Defense Department employees, Secretary Austin wrote, "Those who believe they've experienced a sensory event should, quote, immediately remove yourself, coworkers, and/or family members from the area and report the incident and symptoms to your chain of command, security officer, and medical provider." The so-called Havana Syndrome was first reported 5 years ago in Havana, Cuba. Officials do not know what exactly causes the unusual illness or what is behind it. Suspected cases have spread across more than half a dozen countries, often near active Russian operations. A recent possible incident interrupted Vice President Kamala Harris's trip from Singapore to Vietnam. CBS News senior investigative correspondent Catherine Herridge joins me now with more. Hi there, Catherine. You know, I remember when we first started hearing about these cases because they were so mysterious. So what's behind the Pentagon sending out this email now?
Well, Elaine, you have the State Department collecting data. You've had the CIA collecting data. The CIA accounts for about half of the 200 suspected cases. And now you have the Defense Department collecting data. Based on my reporting, what they're trying to do is create the largest possible data set. Think of it like a giant mosaic as they attempt to connect the dots into what is behind these events and the who is behind these events. And as you mentioned, what we learned in our reporting earlier this year here at CBS is that when you look specifically at Defense Department personnel and contractors, these suspected incidents often occur right nearby or proximate to active Russian operations. And that certainly has the attentions of these analysts, Elaine.
I imagine so. Well, remind us some of the ways the so-called Havana Syndrome affects people and why officials think they are the result of deliberate attacks.
One of the things we learned through our reporting, Elaine, is that you just can't have a microwave device and pointing at someone and then have these tremendous health effects. It actually takes what was described to us as a very specific recipe. It's a pulsed radio microwave energy, and it's directed, and it has the effect, just to make it as simple as possible, of rapidly heating up and then cooling down the cells in your brain, as that is where the damage occurs. Wow. What has the attention of investigators is not only this sort of sophisticated recipe, but also the menu, if you will, of all of the symptoms that are associated with it. We talk about ringing in the ears, we talk about headaches, we talk about nausea, but what most people don't realize is that these symptoms can often be very long-lasting, and in some cases, we've spoken to operatives who to this day will say, I've had a headache for 3 to 4 years, and I've had to leave the job I love because I'm no longer able to operate at a high level.
It is terrifying to hear about that's the first time I've ever kind of heard of an explanation in that detail about what the effects they know are on brain cells. So were officials any closer, Catherine, to figuring out who or what is behind this?
Well, there are really two schools of thought. One, and we heard this directly from Senator Susan Collins, who's briefed on the intelligence, is that all signs point to the Russian intelligence services. The other school of thought is that this technology that was developed by the Russians, we have a photo of a microwave generating device, which is from the 90s. That is believed to be sort of the prototype for what is likely a weapon today, much smaller now, about the size of a desk scanner, so much more portable than what you see here. So the idea is Russians may have shared this technology with other adversaries to the United States who are then using it against U.S. personnel. But I think really the leading view is that it's some kind of operation related to the Russians, or more specifically, Russian intelligence.
So with all of these different departments now having gathered data, what is being done to prevent these attacks?
Well, based on our reporting, what we learned here at CBS News is that they are developing what amounts to like an early warning system, sort of a sensor system, so that people can see that they're entering into a very dangerous area. And as the memo from the Defense Secretary says, to move out of that area immediately. The other thing I want to emphasize is that we're not talking about big numbers here, 200 suspected cases, and I'm in no way minimizing the impact of those cases. But what I've heard consistently from people in the intelligence community is that this is really a weapon of psychological warfare. It's designed to make people fearful, to intimidate them, to make them reluctant to take these high-risk postings overseas. So you injure a very limited number of people, but you have a maximum impact. And of course, this is the playbook of Russian intelligence, right? This is totally their lane and totally their sweet spot.
I mean, one could certainly understand how it would have that kind of chilling effect.
No question.
Because of the mystery surrounding it, you know? And I mean, it really does, Catherine, sound like something out of a movie, honestly. So we
and it's very debilitating. I just want to emphasize that.
If there's more information later.
Yeah, it's very debilitating. Just want to emphasize it's so debilitating for the people who are impacted. And we spoke with a former CIA officer who has a traumatic brain injury that was formally diagnosed at Walter Reed as a result, he believes, of this attack.
Well, hopefully there'll be some information forthcoming that they're able to uncover and ways to thwart these attacks.
For sure.
Catherine Herridge for us. Catherine, thank you very much.